Welcome back to Smug and Play Explains. We're going to do a two-parter on resource management. I assume that you know something about ISA, AGP, and PCI cards. If not, please look them up on Wikipedia. So we're going to go into the resources that these cards use. The first one is interrupt request, or IRQ. This tells the CPU to act. So for example, if a network packet comes in, or if you hit a key on the keyboard, the CPU needs to process those sort of events immediately. Next, there's direct memory access, or DMA. This is for ISA cards and allows them to talk to the memory without the CPU's direct involvement. This way the CPU can work on background tasks. And then there's I/O port address. Much of your address space is taken up by RAM. However, this is an address where the CPU can talk to your expansion card directly. Now you know all these from setting up sound cards in DOS, for example. Looking here at Duke Nukem, you have to put in the IRQ, you have to put in the address, you have to put all the DMAs. And that's because DOS is not a plug-and-play operating system. You have to give it all the information so that it can run your sound card. These resources still matter in Windows 98 and Windows XP. Now you may know that ISA cards don't support IRQ sharing, whereas PCI cards do. However, there are going to be cases where you want to make sure that your graphics, your sound, and your input devices are all on separate IRQs, because otherwise their drivers may conflict and cause blue screens or performance issues. The root cause is that IRQs are in short supply. There are only 16 of them on a standard PC system, and all the red ones here cannot be reassigned. The yellow ones, you might be able to disable these ports and then reuse them, but on a modern system, you may be faced with a situation where only IRQs 10 and 11 are free, and the BIOS is going to try to put all of the PCI cards on those two IRQs, which leads to conflicts. DMA is in a better situation. Half the channels are for 8-bit cards, half the channels for 16-bit cards. DMA 1 is for an 8-bit sound card, DMA 5 usually for a 16-bit sound card, and in fact, most 16-bit sound cards will use both DMAs 1 and 5. Fortunately, most cards don't use DMA, so it's less congested than IRQs. I/O port address, on the other hand, I would consider mostly harmless, and that's for a couple of reasons. Onboard peripherals and ISA cards tend to have a standard address, so an ISA sound card is often found at address 220. So as long as you don't have two of the same kind of card, then you usually don't have conflict. And then PCI cards are automatically set up for you, so you don't have any issues there. So lastly, what happened to these resources over time? On a modern system, I usually don't have resource conflicts, so that must be due to technological advancements. For example, DMA ended with ISA, so the PCI local bus supports bus mastering, which allows the card to read and write from memory on its own. PCI Express introduced message-signaled interrupts, and what this allows is the card to send a message that is then interpreted by the chipset and the operating system. This replaces having physical interrupt lines as we had previously. Now there are interrupts or IRQs, however those are just for supporting legacy software. And lastly, I/O port address of course lives on forever. So that wraps up this video. Please like and subscribe so that you can get part 2, which is going to cover how to deal with IRQ conflicts on DOS, Windows 9X, and Windows XP. Thanks very much.